At the start of any Barbarian Invasion campaign for Rome Total War, there are 5 factions that won't be present on the map. These are known as the Emergent factions or the Spawn factions, and this is a pretty obvious difference from the original Imperial campaign where every faction you'll see is already out there somewhere on the map from the beginning of turn 1. So this video is intended as a quick guide on exactly what needs to happen to make those 5 factions appear. We'll start with the simple ones that almost everyone will encounter in any campaign, which are the West Roman and East Roman rebels. These are fairly self-explanatory. The 2 Roman factions are deliberately set up to have public order problems, and when one of their cities revolts, instead of joining the generic rebels as in the original campaign, they will instead join a dedicated Roman rebel faction, depending which Roman faction they're revolting against. The Roman rebels can play as normal factions, but as Romans they aren't capable of forming a horde. Generally speaking, they don't have enough initial strength to survive against enemy hordes or the Romans themselves, but they will sometimes take over small regions of the map. The Romano British should be familiar to anyone who's played a campaign as the Celts or the Saxons, but they won't necessarily show up in other campaigns. In order for them to appear, the original owner of the settlements Eburacum and Londinium needs to lose both of those settlements. In an unmodded game, that owner will be the West Roman Empire. When that trigger event happens, the Romano British will spawn with one moderately powerful stack of units in the region around Londinium. They can be pretty scary in the early game because of their powerful cavalry, including the Graal Knights, but like any cavalry, these will struggle against massed spearmen or chariots. It's also worth bearing in mind that both Saxon and Celtic spearmen do get a bonus when fighting in woods. Also, the Romano British only have the one family member, so an easy way to wipe them out is to prioritize killing him instead of trying to take out his entire stack. Next up, the Slavs will spawn as a horde on the summer of 410 AD, near the settlement of Campus Barbaricum. This is nearly 100 turns into the campaign, so most experienced players will be finished or mostly finished with a campaign by the time that happens. They'll emerge with 6 stacks of units, but they'll only have 4 different types of units between them. They have the same unit roster as the Vandals, and they'll usually start by heading into Europe, probably taking a fairly similar unpredictable path to any other horde. They're pretty unlikely to have a major impact on the game. They're much weaker than the early game Huns, for example, whereas a human player by this point of the campaign will have stronger forces to fend them off with. They were probably intended as an early appetizer for the much more fearsome Mongol invasion that we see in Medieval 2. Finally, we have the Ostrogoths, who will appear when a Gothic settlement revolts against its owners. That of course is very similar to the West Roman and East Roman rebels, but there is a crucial difference in that when the Ostrogoths lose their final settlement, they are capable of forming a horde, so they're likely going to stick around on the campaign map much longer. However, the Goths are much less likely to experience a revolt compared to the Romans, so in most campaigns they probably won't appear at all. At the start of the campaign, the Gothic capital does start with unusually low public order, but it's still pretty unlikely to actually revolt. For example, while I was waiting for the Slavs to appear for this video, the Goths were still sat in their capital after 100 turns. They didn't experience any revolts. And in most other campaigns, the Goths will probably be driven from their homelands by the many hordes in the area before any revolt takes place. So those are the 5 emergent factions and the various ways you can get them to appear. I hope you found the video helpful. As always, do consider subscribing if you're interested in seeing more content. Otherwise, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.